Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the cryptocurrency market today as Bitcoin is starting to see a continuation coming towards this 200-day moving average on the daily chart. It looks like that's the destination we're heading towards. But if we go into the 4-hour chart, notice how we have taken a pit stop at Starbucks with Bitcoin having a cup of coffee right now just above the 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart. And you can see right now we're forming these very tight triangle patterns, which typically during an uptrend, these would be considered bullish flags that we could expect continued upside with, especially on a 4-hour chart, showing more buy pressure than sell pressure. And we're also maintaining above this weekly open at 38,900 and the monthly open, which is also showing confluence with this major structural level that we broke out of initially. And so at this point, as I talked about yesterday, the path of least resistance when there's light volume is always going to be sideways to a little bit higher. And to see a retest of the $37,500 area where we have the monthly open for Bitcoin right now wouldn't be a surprise, especially with Bitcoin right now having a cup of coffee, trying to determine whether or not it wants to continue to see upside and head towards the initial roadblock that's going to act as resistance at 41,950. Because if we go on the daily chart, that is also exactly where we're at this 200-day moving average. And you can see if we were to come up and wick into 42,600, possibly the $43,000 level, that would be the retest of the 200-day moving average. But the question is that going to happen sooner than later, or are we going to see a pullback? Either way, we're still in a very bullish breakout right now. So we have a lot to look at today. You guys are watching the Snipers channel. My name is Naeem Al-Obeidi. Remember to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I also want to take a look at what's happening to the total cryptocurrency market cap, because on the weekly chart right now, notice how this candle is maintaining itself here at the top of the previous weekly candle. We've already broke the previous weekly candle high, coming towards this 20-week moving average. If we reclaim home base for the total cryptocurrency market cap chart, that would be an extremely positive sign for altcoins. And we really need to start monitoring altcoins, because with the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart, we're still having a cup of coffee at the 65,000 Satoshi level. If we start to see downside here, that could be an early sign that we're going to see more strength in Bitcoin for the short term. That typically happens when there's a lot of fear in the market, which I wouldn't say that all of the fear in the market has yet subsided, because Bitcoin dominance is still above the 50-day moving average. We need to monitor this, because if we start to come up towards this 20-week moving average, this is starting to head towards the 50% dominance area. We know that's a big even. We could possibly see a retest of this level, indicating we'll see strength with Bitcoin. And so a lot of puzzle pieces are on the table. We'll also glance over traditional markets as we always do, but let's dive into this Bitcoin analysis. So with this weekly candle, as we talked about yesterday, we have this bullish tail, and that's a very positive thing on the weekly chart for Bitcoin right now. And so this week, we have a lot of hints that we're going to see upside action. It looks like we're heading towards this 200-day moving average right at that $41,950 area, or 42,000 to keep it simple. And testing 42,000 is going to be the early signs of a rescue operation being successful, because once we get above the 200-day moving average, it is highly likely we come up to the $50,000 level to test the 100-period moving average, and that would be when this death cross occurs, with this 50-day moving average crossing below this 200-day moving average. And so we're going to be watching this $42,000 area. Above 42,000, and we see our continuation to 50,000 for those that got into their long positions here. If you were tuned into the Snipers channel, remember to subscribe if you've yet to do so. We're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. We're almost halfway there, so I would very much appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and told your friends about our channel. That would truly help. And so for those that did take our trade here at the breakout, we're in a good position right now to hold a break-even stop loss. And that's what I like about the current schematics. It's exactly why we took this trade. For those that got in at 37,500, we have our entry below the monthly open and the weekly open. And so we have 2 points of support before we even trigger our break-evens. And so either one of these scenarios to the downside, I wouldn't be too surprised to see if we come down to the monthly open around that $37,000 level. I'm totally fine with that. As long as we don't come below 37, then I think that we could certainly start to see this continue to the upside. And so that would be for the neutral stance. And I think that the neutral stance that we're talking about now and the potential for us to just see continuation over the next day or into this week without even testing this as a support, because on the 1 hour chart, we already did test it as support. And so you can see we broke out here and then we came out. We actually didn't test it as support. So I always make my videos in real time. So there are times that I forget previous charts that I look at. So I rarely make those type of mistakes. But so if we do test this support at 38,000, then that would be garden variety market behavior. We've yet to test it, even on the micro time frame. So that's what I'm watching right now for Bitcoin. And then as long as we hold 37,000, I don't think we'll see 35,000. Of course, this is the make it or break it. We don't want to get below 34,800 at this point whatsoever. And the outside environment to me makes the first and second scenario the most likely. I think we're either going to just see continuation or see a retest and continuation. So that is just being the umpire based on the schematics, the volume, and the overall market environment outside of Bitcoin. And so let's look at altcoins, because with Ethereum to Bitcoin, this is early hints here, the largest altcoin that we could start seeing. We could start to see weakness for altcoins in the short term, but we still have this high and this lower high. And if we came down to form a lower low, that would be a bull flag in the more medium term. And so I think that if we start to see continued fear, I know with the consumer spending, reports that came out today, they were expecting, negative 0.5%, and it came out negative 5%. So consumer spending has really lowered over the last month. So stuff like that, I think, if we start to see bearish news and traditional markets start to pull back, there's a possibility we could start to see that scenario with Bitcoin coming back to test 38,000, and then at that point, we really need to monitor altcoins, because what if altcoins dump harder than Bitcoin during that time? That's something that's on the table. But if we just come to form a lower low, I think that we'll see a lot of similar price action with the others dominance chart, with what we have happening with the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart, which is why we're watching both, because others dominance also has the opportunity to come down to this 20-week moving average. But as long as we stay above this, it's a very bullish chart in nature. And so I think that altcoins need to be monitored over the next few days. That's why I told you guys the storyline over this week is going to be watching altcoins. So we'll spend a little bit more time on that as we are right now. With Ethereum to US dollar price, once again, I've kind of beaten this over the last 2 weeks. But if we get above 2,700, that's the monthly open. We have 2 more weeks of that level being present. I think we'll see 3,500 for the upside. But the weekly open right now and the 100 period moving average are really being tested. We've knocked on this door quite a few times. So if we start to see downside below 2,500, really it's that $2,400 area, that is starting to show weakness for Ethereum. And so we want to monitor the $2,000 level at that point. I think we would come down and test 1,760 if we were to start to see downside. And let's say this becomes, the double bottom that we start to see push back to the upside, and that maybe gives others dominance a little bit of some breathing room to see some downside over the next week or so, to then see continuation later. I don't know how that would play out, but I do know that this total cryptocurrency market cap chart will matter here this week, because we want to monitor this weekly candle. Is this going to be the first sign that we're going to start to see a little bit of slow down with this market, maybe still be in a bullish trend, but not see as much price action to the upside? If we start to get above this 20-week moving average, that's confirmation of strength. But if we still reject it, that's not what I'd like to see. But for the macro, it really doesn't concern me, right? So I think this is going to be a very crucial week for the total market in general. I personally believe that we are going to just see this push to the upside, just being the umpire with what we're seeing with Bitcoin. I think that's very possible. And most importantly, the outside environment is very healthy. The DXY is seeing some strength, but we're still below home base. And so that buys us some time. With the daily chart, you can see we're coming to test this 50-period moving average. We're above the weekly open, the monthly open. And so we want to monitor this DXY starting to come up. The higher this comes, the stronger the dollar gets, the more we start to see asset prices come down, right? And so we're starting to see the effects of this with S&P 500 still having a cup of coffee. Maybe that's why Bitcoin decided to have a pit stop and wanted to hang out with its old buddy here, the oldest traditional markets, right? They're both having a cup of coffee at Starbucks right now, but with the S&P 500, it's having a cup of coffee at all-time highs, and Bitcoin's having a cup of coffee after a 50% correction. And so I think that's why it's important to watch gold, because we could get a little bit of indication of the mindset of institutions if we see a bounce here at the 200-day moving average, and we test this previous breakout level, garden variety market retest. We see continuation, strength in gold would make me assume that we'll see strength in Bitcoin. And so maybe we see Bitcoin act as a hedge, even if we see a slowdown in traditional markets. That could be the case. I think that's kind of what I've been saying over the last 2 weeks for those tuned into the channel, that we're seeing accumulation occur here, and this market's certainly more attractive than traditional markets right now as a hedge. I think it could be the door that opens for more volume to come in and for us to see that $50,000 level again. And then from there, whether we reject or not, we'll have to monitor that, of course. But another reason I say that is because this gold to Bitcoin chart, we do have this cup and handle, but I personally, as an umpire, the fundamentals matter. I don't think we'll come up and see this take fruition, because that's the 2017 bottom. I don't think that the gold to Bitcoin ratio is ever going to get back to that level. I think that this could be a fake out. We could be seeing this continue to the downside. Maybe as we start to see gold come up, we'll see Bitcoin come up as well. And like we did here, gold was also coming up during this time, and Bitcoin was able to come up too, but Bitcoin outperformed gold, and that could cause this chart to come down. And maybe we see institutions hedge from traditional markets into gold, silver, commodities, oil, and then Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I mean, that's all on the table, right? And so the question there is, what about altcoins? And I think that's why we want to monitor them very closely. And in traditional markets outside of the U.S., the Japan is up almost 1% today. China is still struggling there at the 150 period moving average, just like Shanghai. And then the Euro 100 is seeing continuations, about to probably see a short-term top here soon. But this has been the weakest market, so that's nothing, and it's a small market, nothing to really put on the table as a major puzzle piece. So with that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you. I gotta get this dog groomed up, and if you guys don't know, I rescued a dog recently, and I want to give away Mastering Bitcoin to one of you watching this video, snipers. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I would love to share some of my favorite books with you guys. Let's go ahead and pick a winner from our video yesterday. Family Leal says, thanks for reminding me about Turnaround Tuesday. Send me a message on Instagram. Link is in the description below. And you want to book Mastering Bitcoin. If you want to win this, comment below, share this video. And with that, I hope you enjoyed today's analysis. Until next time, snipers, out.